Patton learned French well enough to study the original writings of Napoleon's officers, and Patton enjoyed sword fighting, and he played polo and flew his own plane. And Patton was helped in France in September of 1944 by such an organized thievery of supplies from both French civilians and American servicemen that the British told Ike to send soldiers to guard the supplies being shuttled illicitly towards Patton. So Patton wrote a formal letter back to the British saying that using American troops to stop the pilfering would be a waste since they were needed instead to fight Germans. The ingenuity of diverting supplies went a long way towards helping Patton's effort and was accomplished by word of mouth and by great personal sacrifice. Patton and Ike had gotten to know each other at Camp Meade in 1922, where they'd been sent to train with the new tanks. And Ike had been born in Texas before his family moved to Kansas. And Ike went to West Point and played football with Bradley in 1912. And then Ike took a convoy of army trucks from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco in 1919, where he learned plenty about logistics and motorized supply. Ike's German ancestors had come to America the year Frederick the Great was put on the throne, and they changed their name from Eisenhower to Eisenhower with an H-O-W rather than the original H-A-U, and their name Eisenhower in their native German meant iron worker or blacksmith. In the critical test of Roosevelt's policy, legislation to extend the military draft for 1 year and keep American mobilization on track passed the House of Representatives on August 12, 1941 by 1 vote. Eisenhower at War, 1943 to 1945 by David Eisenhower. New York Random House, Juledy, Inc., 1986, page 73. The ongoing war between the United Kingdom and the United States was evidenced by the fact that all American presidents, up until 1933, had English names except for 2, and McKinley was murdered in cold blood, and Van Buren had been elected in that strange year of 1836 when the Panic of 1837 would cause America to open the U.S. independent treasury in 1841, making gold the currency of choice rather than the British pound sterling. Ike would be required to stand between the hostile Germans and the equally hostile British, as both sides blamed him for getting in the way of their easy, amicable, separate peace, while there was still time and manpower available to defeat the Russians. And despite the fierce opposition from both sides, Ike marched forward into Germany because he believed in Providence with a capital P, and he knew that one must carry one's cross or be crushed beneath it. FDR had shown no sympathy over Dunkirk because it seemed clear to him that the British had simply abandoned the French to Hitler, and FDR was also staunchly against any British strategy that would bolster their empire, and thus Britain needed to defeat the Americans on the battlefield, by ambush and by lack of supplies and by outright betrayal. And the key to controlling the theater was mostly about controlling the supply of fuel. Diverting precious gasoline from the American army to give to the gas-guzzling airplanes that used an astonishing rate of fuel fit hand in glove with the British endgame of a separate peace with Germany, because there was no question that the people of France would beg for any negotiated end to the continual death coming down on them from the sky. The British plan was to do so much damage to the towns in Holland and Belgium and Luxembourg and France that these would welcome a British negotiated peace to end the war no matter the cost, and because the bombers were made in America while the targets were picked by Britain, the civilian population would readily turn against America for having destroyed their country with the Boeing flying fortresses. Bombs dropped from thousands of feet hit the target less than 20% of the time, and planes burned so much more gasoline than a battalion of tanks, and aerial bombing managed to blow up mostly empty fields, while in cities the incendiaries dropped from the sky became the weapon of choice in convincing Europe that the ruthless British were the most committed to becoming the ruling power.